Ashes of Creation is an incredibly ambitious and complex project. It is billed as a PvX game. There are a lot of PvE options. There's a ton of things to do in PvE. However, there's an immense amount to do in PvP. That is why I decided to cut the PvP section out of my Everything Known video and give that to you guys in a separate standalone video. So the rest of this video is copy pasted from that video, and I'll have the timestamp where it starts in that video if you'd like to go check that video out. And with that, guys, let's get into it. PvP is the catalyst for change in Ashes. The PvP is intended to be meaningful, ranging from small-scale caravan battles to large-scale castle sieges with hundreds of players. Most PvP will be experienced through opt-in objective-based battlegrounds. These are high-risk and high-reward encounters that do not utilize the corruption system. These include castle and node sieges, caravans, guild wars, and naval PvP in the open seas. Death penalties, for the most part, do not apply to these objective-based events, with the exception of gear degradation during caravan PvP. In addition to these structured PvP systems, there are some reasons to engage in PvP in the open world where corruption is enabled. Some of the reasons could be to contest open world dungeons or raids, or to contest scarce resources and hunting grounds. However, corruption penalties are so severe that griefing or killing players that do not fight back should be minimal. Caravans are rolling open PvP zones that flag all players for PvP and do not have corruption enabled. Players, when encountering a caravan, can choose to attack, defend, or ignore the objective entirely. A group will be needed to successfully attack a caravan. Players can only participate in one caravan event at a time. There are incentives and risk-reward for both attackers and defenders. A quest system will track a player's history of success or defeats with caravans and provide rewards that scale up over time. There are also plenty of social incentives and rewards for participating in caravan PvP. Caravans will likely be needed to transport materials for crafting and processing and to help build up nodes and castle nodes. There will be a massive amount of materials needed for these things, and caravans will be by far the most efficient means to transfer these materials, since they cannot be moved quickly via fast travel and there is not a global auction house. There are three types of caravans: mayoral caravans, quest-driven caravans, and personal caravans. Mayoral caravans are launched by mayors, and they establish a trade route with another node and can give a node extra resources when completed. Quest-driven caravans are also used to establish trade routes between nodes. These are system-driven caravans that scale in capability based on the progress of a node and do not have to be built by the players. Trade routes are described as economic relationships between nodes that are established to trade commodities that are unique to particular nodes or node types via NPC-driven caravans. Personal caravans are initiated by the player, who essentially becomes the caravan. These are land-based and water-based caravans that the player directs and drives. Personal caravans are initiated from and arrive at the caravansary node building in every node type at stage 3 and higher nodes. Caravans are constructed from various components, and you can get improved components to boost the HP and carrying capacity and other values of the caravan. Once constructed, it will be available at the caravansary and will then appear in your list of caravans to choose from and launch. Launching the caravan will be done in an area surrounding the node that the player chooses and not at the same place every time. This makes it easier to conceal the start of a caravan launch from attackers. The various storage components of the caravan can be loaded with crates that are filled with goods and can be assigned to various interested parties. Crates will have small, medium, and large capacities. The higher the quality, the greater the capacity. Personal caravans can also transition to naval caravans. PvP opponents in caravan PvP will not be able to see the exact contents of a caravan before they decide to attack or defend. However, there will be some visual clues as to the cargo contained in the caravan, though it will not be granular. Mercenary NPCs can also be hired to participate in objective-based PvP in Ashes, including caravan defense, node siege defense, and castle siege defense. When a caravan is destroyed, it will drop a portion of the goods it is carrying. The remainder of the goods will be destroyed. Anyone may loot the wreckage of the caravan, including the defenders. Caravan components might also drop, and they can be salvaged for raw materials if desired. The heavy goods in the caravan will drop certificates that are redeemable at the origin node for a percentage of the goods. But the rest of the goods, the players will have to figure out how to transport themselves. Caravan performance will also be measured during the PvP seasons, which last for 6 months, and at the end of the season players will receive rewards based on performance. Castle sieges are an integral part of the PvP in Ashes of Creation as well. But before we get into castle sieges, we need to talk about castles first. There are 5 guild castles, and each will influence 1/5 of the world. One castle is located on an island and can only be affected by naval combat. The castles will initially be occupied by an NPC adversary. These are the primary antagonists in the storyline. Once a guild first takes a castle from the NPCs, then there will be a castle sieges every month. During the lead up to the siege, guilds will need to upgrade castle defenses. Each castle has 3 nodes that will need to be developed each month by the guild that controls the castle in order to bolster the castle defenses during the siege. Questing is the method that is used to upgrade these nodes. One of the ways the castle nodes are developed is every weekend leading up to the siege, caravans will move towards one of the castle nodes carrying the taxes collected during the week. Successfully defending these caravans will bolster that node and increase the defense of the castle during the siege. Enemies of the guild that owns the castle will obviously be incentivized to attack and destroy these caravans. Citizens of the nodes that are under the control of the castle cannot attack the caravans, they can only defend. The controlling guild will likely not be able to fully upgrade these castle nodes on their own, they will likely need some assistance from other guilds to do this. The castle nodes are always military nodes and cannot advance past stage 3. They exist outside of the normal node system. Mercenary NPCs can be hired to protect castle caravans and during the siege, depending on how well the nodes have been developed. There are many benefits given to the guild that owns a castle, so expect them to be highly contested. As said, each castle controls 1/5 of the world map, and any developed nodes under the control of the castle will be taxed by the castle. A portion of these taxes can only be used exclusively for building up the defenses of the castle, but a portion can be used by the guild for whatever they want. In addition, the castle owners can activate special events and abilities that benefit the node citizens under their rule, and they can unlock special node buildings within the nodes under their control as well. As for the monthly castle sieges, the sieges will only happen during a server primetime window. The minimum goal for these sieges is for them to accommodate 250 versus 250 on a single battlefield, but the developers are hoping for as much as 500 versus 500. There may be instance locations within otherwise open world castle and node sieges where specific groups can participate in small, short-duration objective-based battles that will affect the overall outcome of the siege. The 4th and final week before the castle siege is the Declaration Week. During this time, guilds can sign up to defend or attack the castle. Once a guild registers to attack a castle, a siege declaration quest is initiated that guild members may participate in, and it is possible to lay the decoration scroll down as soon as the quest is completed. Multiple guilds may register to attack, and the first to complete the scroll and lay down the declaration will be the one that is chosen to be the attacking guild. The Siege Scroll deployment is a 5-minute rooted-in-place cast that alerts the region at the cast initiation and names the caster. The caster must be the guild leader. The casting can only be interrupted by killing the caster. The scroll can also only be cast in a ring around the castle. Following Siege Declaration, the defending guild can approve defenders, hire mercenaries, and set up defensible positions. The attackers will need to approve attackers and craft all the siege equipment needed for the siege. Group summons are also a feature of Ashes, in which a full group can activate powerful summons that are used in the siege. One example was a tank wall ability. The castle sieges will have waypoints that attackers can capture, and when they do, their respawn timer is diminished. Legendary NPCs will act as mini raid bosses that can be killed by either side for various benefits. The defender's goal is to survive until the 90-minute siege timer ends. The attackers will need to reach the inner keep of the castle, and once there, a guild leader or designated officer may cast a 3 to 5 minute cast to seal ownership of the castle. Casting time will be diminished based on how many capture points the attackers hold. There is an opportunity for any guild leader in the attacking alliance to capture the castle themselves, even if they did not lay down the declaration scroll, which creates potential for inter-guild drama between the attackers. And as already mentioned in the mount section, the flying mount dragons for the defenders will be a strong weapon for the defenders. And that concludes the castle and castle sieging discussion. Now we move on to the node sieges, which are another non-corruption enabled PvP system in Ashes of Creation. A successful node siege will fully destroy a node and take it all the way back to stage 0. Sieging nodes will not be an easy task and will be harder the higher level the node is. Mayors can purchase and allocate defense mechanisms to bolster siege defenses using treasury funds from node taxes. These include stronger walls and gates, traps, and siege equipment. Relics in a node reliquary can also bolster the damage, attack range, or player health of the defenders. Declaring a node siege is similar to declaring a castle siege, except node sieges are not scheduled to happen automatically every month, and anyone can declare a node siege, not just the guild leader. There is a substantial investment required in order for anyone to acquire a node siege scroll, and the scroll is specific to one node only. The mayor will be notified when their node is declared on a siege scroll. There's a cooldown period that varies based on the node stage before the actual siege occurs. There's also a siege declaration cooldown of 21 days following a node advancing to a higher stage node. If a node levels up during the siege declaration, the level up will not happen until after the siege if the defense is successful. Sieging a node will require a similar amount of resources and time to what it took to develop the node being sieged. Siege equipment will need to be crafted by both sides. During the declaration period, individuals or guilds can register to attack or defend providing they meet the criteria. The player who declared the siege cannot exclude anyone from joining the attack. Citizens of the node or provincial nodes are automatically registered as defenders. Players do not need to be citizens of a node in order to register as defenders, but they cannot be a citizen of a node that is at war with that node. Many node services are shut down during a node siege declaration, and instead quests and services that prepare for the siege will be available. Players can also not move goods out of any sort of storage system within the node. Like castle sieges, node sieges will occur during server prime time. Flying dragon mounts will also be usable in node sieges. During a node siege, each node will have a number of districts depending on what stage the node is in. Districts are taken by defeating a raid level boss guard NPC in each district. If attackers take over a district, they gain that area as a respawn point. Attackers can also kill the quartermasters to increase the respawn times of the defenders and reduce their own respawn time. Defenders can also assault the siege outposts of the attacking team to hinder them. And if the defenders destroy the headquarters of the attacking army, their defenders will instantly win the siege. Attackers cannot delevel a node, but they can disable certain service-oriented buildings by destroying them during the siege, even if they do not win the entire siege. A node siege lasts 2 hours. For the defense to win, they need to destroy the attacker outpost or survive the full 2 hours. Defenders will need to hold a central point and channel a 5-minute cast on the defender's flag on this point. This channel cannot be interrupted by CC, only by killing the player that is channeling it. If the node survives, there will be a cooldown period before a node can be sieged again based on the level of the node. Citizens of the node will need to repair any damaged infrastructure after an unsuccessful siege. If the attackers do succeed in the siege, the node is destroyed and returned to level 0. Node citizens will lose their citizenship. After the node is destroyed, the footprint of the node will enter a ruined state and will become an open PvP zone for a number of days equal to the node's level. The loot from the ruins will be a free-for-all for anyone to claim. Recovering the treasures from the debris field will take time and tools to recover. The warehouse debris field will contain a portion of all materials and gatherables that were stored in the node. The reliquary debris will contain a stockpile of shards of the relics that were stored there. The town hall might contain tax-oriented certificates that were stored there. The stables debris field might contain mount certificates. Gatherables and processed goods from in-node housing and apartment storage chests also become lootable. Player freeholds can be attacked by any player for a period of 2 hours following a successful node siege, and any remaining freeholds will exist under a grace period for roughly 1 week where another node may take over the zone of influence of the freehold. If a node does not control a freehold after that time, it is destroyed. Players will have to complete a quest to transfer their freehold to a new node if one is available. If any node housing is destroyed, designs and decorations are retained and can be placed again in the next house the player owns. Blueprints are mailed to the player to utilize for future placement. Freeholds will have some materials lost when destroyed. And that concludes the Node Sieges section. Now we move on to the next PvP system, Guild Wars. There's not a lot known about Guild Wars just yet, but the goal of Guild Wars is for them to be objective based with great risk involved for both sides. Guild War objectives are designed to be more fluid than Castle Siege objectives. Guild Wars can be declared at any time, but the objectives will only spawn during server prime time. Guild Wars will not be permanent. Definitive victory conditions exist that will end the war. Some examples given of Guild War objectives are capturing some objective near the enemy guild hall on a freehold. There might also be bounty objectives to kill a specific guild member. Quickly on guild halls, since I mentioned them, these are placed on guild free halls or in nodes. In-node guild halls are only available to guilds that are patrons of a node. The guild will need to achieve a certain guild level to unlock guild halls. In addition to guild halls, there are also guild fortresses. Now, it has not been decided if these will actually be in the game yet, but if they are, they will likely be siegeable during Guild Wars and be a Guild War objective. Guild Wars will be one of the activities that is shown on the guild ladder. Castle sieges and world bosses will also appear on the guild ladder. Guild Wars will also be a part of the 6-month-long PvP seasons. One important thing to cover regarding PvP in Ashes is the affiliation tree. This determines what has priority in terms of war in Ashes of Creation. Node citizenship is the highest priority affiliation a player has, so for example, if two nodes are at war and both nodes have members of the same guild in them, then those members will be at war with each other. Another PvP option in Ashes is Naval PvP. We have already covered most of this, but the open seas will not have the corruption system enabled. Close to the shoreline, corruption is enabled. Arenas are an instanced PvP option in Ashes as well. There will be 1-man, 3-man, 5-man, and possibly 20-man free-for-all group sizes in the arenas. There will not be guild versus guild arenas, but players can queue as teams. Arenas will have a minimum level requirement, and there will not be arena brackets, just one arena mode for all players that meet the minimum level requirement. There will be an arena ladder, and the arenas will be part of the PvP seasons. The PvP season rewards include gear enhancement rewards, achievement ranks, and currency. That covers all of the structured PvP options that do not have the corruption system enabled. Now it is time to talk about the open PvP and how the corruption system works. Corruption is a system that is designed to prevent griefing of players in the open world. The penalties for those that gank players who do not fight back is extremely severe. There are 3 flagging states in Ashes of Creation: non-combatants, which have a green nameplate, combatants with a purple nameplate, and corrupted with a red nameplate. The flagging states and all the possible flagging combinations are seen in this chart. It looks very complicated at first glance, but in reality it is not that complicated. The only way someone can become corrupted is to first become a combatant by attacking a combatant or non-combatant, and then they get a killing blow on a non-combatant. Combatants killing combatants do not become corrupted. Non-combatants are free to attack corrupted players without becoming combatants themselves. All players start as non-combatants. Any non-forced player attacks such as AoE and status effects will not hit a combatant player. If a combatant player is fighting a non-combatant and the player dies to a mob, then the combatant will not become corrupted. Players are flagged as combatants if they attack another player. If the player fights back, they are also flagged as a combatant. Non-combatants who heal or support a combatant will be flagged as combatants as well. Killing a combatant player will not flag a player as corrupt. Players remain flagged for 90 seconds after their last attack and cannot log out while flagged as a combatant. The only way a player can become corrupted is by killing a non-combatant. Their corruption score will increase with each subsequent non-combatant killed, and killing a non-combatant that is much lower level will cause that score to increase much faster. Players will also have a lifetime PK value score, which will also increase the rate at which they become corrupted. There might be quests to slowly reduce the score, but this is something that will be a long-term negative for a player that ganks the unwilling, further disincentivizing PKing. As stated in the death penalties section, once a corrupted player is killed, they will see a 4x increase in the standard death penalty, and they will have a chance to drop gear. And the penalties increase in severity the higher the corruption score of the player is. Even more penalties for corrupted players is they cannot trade with other players, they cannot interact with vendors or NPCs, and they cannot access storage. And since players cannot become corrupted by themselves killing a corrupt player, and can then loot the corpse that has dropped 4x the normal amount of materials, players will be incentivized naturally to attack and try to kill these players. And remember, corruption will decrease the combat effectiveness of corrupt players a substantial amount, so it might be a fairly easy task to kill them. And on top of that incentive, there is even a bounty hunter system in place as well that will encourage even more players to seek out and kill corrupted players. Starting at stage 4 in military nodes, citizens of that node and potentially even the citizens of vassal nodes of that military node can become a bounty hunter. With this, they can see active corrupt players on their map to make it very easy to track them down and kill them. The primary and quickest way to remove corruption is through a corrupted player dying. Gaining experience will slowly reduce corruption as well. Suffice it to say, I believe that corruption will be very punishing and prevent a lot of griefing. But at the same time, those that don't mind PvP might fight back when ganked to reduce their own death penalty by 50% and have a chance to loot their enemies. In theory, this system could allow for natural, organic open world PvP, but still be very punishing for griefers, but we will have to see when we finally get to test this in Alpha 2 next year. And with that, we have fully covered the PvP section. That's it, guys. That is everything about the PvP in Ashes of Creation. I told you it's complex. There's a lot to it. If you're a fan of open world PvP, there are no shortage of systems for you to enjoy once the game finally launches. And with that in mind, guys, that's all I have for this video. Be sure to go check out the full Everything Known video if you haven't. And with that, I'll see you in the next one.